Hello again, I'm Nettie. Hopefully you've watched the parallel lives, the subconscious and the conscious, what they're calling the new piece of the puzzle. This information is information that I was given while I was sleeping, and then again while I was awake, and I can actually go in and retrieve those. I explain it kind of like little lecture theatres of information that I get down. You will notice One Foot in Both World, Keeping It Real with Tanya and Nettie. I got a download very much about being aligned, and this actually is also part of that, but it's just in a different sort of format. It's more of how the concept of our body comes and how spirit comes into our body. I'm going to try and do a short video, but I am a talker and I keep getting visions up, so I do get lost a bit, so please stay with me and I hope that I can do it. I'm going to be putting a diagram up this time for you so that you can follow along. As I said, I'm very visual and I do find that that helps, and for those who are great at listening, great, you can, or not watching this, that's fine, but I also will have a diagram up there to help. Okay, I'm going to summarize for you a holistic view of what information they gave me. So they talked about our mind and our subconscious and our conscious mind. And they explained the role of sleep and what happens when we're asleep, but also with our subconscious, what happens when we're awake. In summary, you will see I've got the brain there, and below the brain we've got the spinal cord and then the nervous system that runs down. That is the really important parts of what I'm talking about and how the subconscious and the conscious work. So while you're asleep, the subconscious goes into work and it actually downloads a lot of information. Now, it cuts off a few parts through your spinal cord into your nervous system, so that when this information comes in such a fast pace, your body actually physically doesn't relate to it. Because anything that happens in your conscious mind, your body will actually physically react to. So while you're using your conscious every day, while you're awake and walking around, it's important to have all of these. But while you're sleeping, you don't need your body to actually move. So your body is super clever, and it is able to turn off the ability for some of your movements, like the part in the brain that reacts to movement. So that happens. Now, while we're asleep, right, we're getting all this information from these guides. Now, it's really interesting because these guides that are coming in, it's like energy, really. So if you can imagine, you can see I've got a diagram with some round circles coming with energy going into your mind. Now, that happens all day, but during the sleep, it happens in a much bigger way because it can actually do it without disturbing your conscious mind that we just spoke about. And so I call that the intuitive side, and I call the conscious the physical side, because that's the way they explained it to me. And there's a little bridge that sort of goes in between where our pineal sits, and the idea is actually to sit somewhere between the two when you're trying to be as intuitive as you can, and then you'll be able to actually get more vision coming in. You'll get more hearing, sounding, smell, all of the senses that you can get, which come under psychic or mediumship, will actually sit and be so much stronger when you can actually sit in that center. And people who are mediums and psychics and intuitives will find that that's where they actually spend a lot of their time. They can pop in and out of that very easily. And some people are really good at being disciplined in saying, I'm going to sit in my conscious, I'm not going to do that. And when they want to, they move back into their thing, and then they start to feel or hear everything. And other people like myself, I am capable of doing that. But I find that I live very much now, as I've got older and I'm in my early 50s, I sit very much in between the subconscious and the conscious. And, people will call people like myself a daydreamer because you're often sort of moving into that thing. But when people come near me, I can feel sort of their energy and feel their thing. I can still control it. If it gets too much, I actually just drop back into my conscious and I walk away in some cases. But sitting in that pineal is where we want to do. So you're sleeping, or during the day when you've got these guides coming, it's like, who is this? Where is this energy from? What are these circles that I've drawn on this page? Well, the way that they've shown me over the last couple of years, but even more so recently, is they are kind of an extension of ourselves. You'll have heard me say that about 1/8 of our soul comes into our body and then it comes up. But actually what we are is we're a collective consciousness. You'll hear this word when people are talking about psychics. Like, what do they actually mean by collective consciousness? It means that all of the energy is actually connected. It's almost like one massive cloud, if you can imagine that. And out of that comes what I see as kind of raindrops and then into little circle drops of energy. And I often see these energies in groups. And within the group, there's two kind of things that happen. So if I'm looking at a person, I will see their guides come in, and I see two types of guides. Behind them, I often see what I would call intuitive guides or spiritual guides that energy has never existed within a person's soul. And the other ones are actually the collective direct energy of that person. So they're usually ancestors or relatives of that actual person, or ones that have been sort of put with that group to help guide them, if that makes sense. So these guides are kind of yourself, if that makes sense. So as I said, I see the intuitive people behind and I see physical people in front. I did a reading for someone the other day, and they had 3 guides come behind them, and I could see that they were people that had never been there before, but they were going through a fairly large trauma, and they were actually helping them with that. But then when I started to ask questions about, or the person actually was asking me about something to do with, you know, their everyday, how they're coping, I straight away saw like an energy step forward out of them, and that is kind of like their grounding, their physical guide, and it sort of popped out in front of me. Now, when I'm saying this, you'll actually talk to lots of mediums and psychics, and we all do it slightly different. Like, some will actually have to the right hand side and to the left hand side different. Some will mingle them, but for me it's very clear between the two. The colors do change. At the moment, I find that physical energies usually come out quite blue, like a blue light, and the intuitive ones are very white at the moment. Interestingly, I did a little recording the other day, and I was talking about physical ailments, and we were just doing a tutorial on how to move like pain in your spots, and I had all this blue energy. I don't even know if you could see me in the video actually, because it was actually in front of me. And usually I sit by the window, it's my favorite spot to sit, and I can feel the energy behind me, and it's like the guiding energy. But this was definitely my own physical energy coming and saying, yeah, like, I've got a sore shoulder and I've got a sore hip, and let's do some energy work on that. So for each person it is slightly different, but you will start to work out what yours is if you do start feeling these energies or seeing these energies. And sometimes for some people it's just like, oh, I felt that in front of me, or I felt that behind me, or you feel like someone's leaning over you, or you feel guided or guarded. And in the shower, water's brilliant, so you may actually feel that water coming on you, and then you just feel like someone touched you. Or when you're doing energy balls, sometimes they will actually have like light wind. I did a friend, I was there the other day, we're doing energy balls, and she actually had a guide come in too, and I could feel the air around my hands, and she was saying that's how I will let you know that I'm there. Now, when I say she or he, energy doesn't have a sex, so but they can present in a way that the image is either female or male often, or a bit of both. But anyway, they like to give us imagery to portray kind of the energy that they're trying to do. And in particular, when it's someone who has been in the past, they will give kind of a more of a physical energy and a sound, and they'll be moody, or they'll be happy, or they'll be that sort of stuff. So they give that energy so that you can work out who that is. So the overall point is that these energies are actually kind of you. they're part of your soul. They're the extra connection. So you've got about 1/8 of you I see inside, and a little bit above the sort of top of your head, where people call the 7th chakra, I've now known. And then it goes up, and your energy actually relates to these other energies, which is super cool because have a think about it. Only part of your soul is in there. So when a loved one passes and they cross to the other side, Tanya Leanne actually got this in a reading, and it was like, oh yeah, that actually, I can see that makes sense to me. And she was explaining that she saw that we are there to greet them, and absolutely we are. Like everything that I've seen in the way these come in, that is what happens. You cross over and the 7/8 of you is still there on the other side. So, when I lost my father, I knew that when he passed, my 7 siblings and my mum and his brothers and sisters that were still living were actually part of the greeting party on the other side. So he could reconnect with that energy. It's harder for us because we don't get to feel that energy in the same way. I'm very lucky to have that feeling and being able to do that, but I know that not all my siblings can do that in the same way that I can, and nor can my mum, although they all have their own intuitive ways, so they can to some degree. Okay, so we've got us and other energy coming in from the collective conscious. We've got all that coming in and giving us information. And while we sleep, it's actually going through the bullet train of information. So I'm talking huge downloads, information. It's showing us scenarios. There's no time, there is no age, there's nothing in those parameters, so that it can show us things in different ways that will make more sense to us. And then we've got our conscious mind, and our conscious mind is one single focus. It is attached to this physical. We can only do one thing at a time. If we were to have, like our subconscious do, like 2 scenarios present at once, where we'd be going, hang on a minute, you're walking over there and you're walking over there, you can't be doing that. Whereas at the same time, we can be shown a whole like movie length or an ad or a reel kind of thing in our head of 4 different things that one person could do in the same situation. If we were to see it in our physical, we would just we would be called crazy, right? And sometimes when people can actually go back into that part of their brain, they will be said, oh no, we don't believe you, you're crazy. They'll be saying, oh no, I think there's parallel lives and things like that. Well, parallel lives exist within our subconscious. They don't exist in our physical. So this physical body, they are showing me, doesn't have more than one life. It has one. But it can be shown lots of different concepts. It's like a dream. Like if you imagine dreams and movies and things, your subconscious can go through hold many things. So people who can access into their subconscious will go, oh wow, I feel like, I can see parallel lives, I can see this stuff. But actually it is a parallel life. It's just not belonging to a physical body like our physical. There's not an identical world somewhere else that's doing the same thing. It's just that there's different scenarios that our subconscious can actually work through, so that our physical and our conscious can actually make better decisions moving forward. And the conscious slows everything down to a pace. Our subconscious, is our bullet train, and our physical conscious mind is like an ant. It goes along, it picks up every single scent. It does its thing as it needs to do. It's got a very important role to actually make sure that the sort of things that it's meant to address along the way are addressed, and it carries what the physical does. Now, our physical body, coming from our 2 parents, also brings with it some conscious memories or conscious makeup. It comes up with conscious kind of feelings and things that actually come into our nervous system, in through our spinal cord, and sit in our subconscious. And so we can actually, during our lives, we will find that we might have addictions and things that our parents had, or our aunts had, and our uncles had, or even people that we've never met, and they've actually seeded through our physical part. Tanya and I do a whole thing on past lives. If you want to go back on that, I think that's season 4, past lives. Have a look at that, because that talks about the seeding in the nervous system and that sort of stuff. It was quite interesting, actually. That was information. We were meant to do a podcast on dying, I think, and Spirit came in just as we were about to start and said, no, you're not. You're doing it on past lives. So that was super cool as well for us. So I've got parallel lives and dreams. You understand they belong in the subconscious. People can actually wake and their conscious can be aware through the center, through the bridge, the pioneer. Time is quite interesting in our conscious. You'll hear people say all the time, time doesn't really exist, blah, blah, blah. But it does. Time exists very much in the physical. In the conscious mind, time is a very important tool. I had a friend who had a seizure, and part of the seizure was in their temporal lobe, so temporal lobe seizures, and they bypassed it. The brain's really clever, it moves things, but they lost time. So they couldn't understand whether they'd been there for a day, a minute, a year, like nothing like that actually made sense. And it was really interesting because they could still function, they just didn't know time. They just didn't know the difference between a second and a year, or whether they were 50 or 5. It just, and it had no relevance. They sort of didn't understand why other people were saying, you've been here for this, or you've done this. But our world is actually set up with time being crucial. We have day and we have night, and we have, our 24-hour kind of constraint that we've actually labeled onto this over time, or over the decades, I should say. And we've done that because our physical body actually needs that routine. We need to, the conscious is very slow, as we said, and the more patterns we can repeat in the conscious, the more we can actually address and get on with everything else that our conscious body needs to do. So that's kind of super cool. Memory is quite complex. They talk about subconscious memory and conscious memory. They talk about some of it being in, the start and some of it then. So that is part of it as well. Yeah, I think that's kind of summed up most of it. Not forgetting that the nervous system and the importance of the nervous system running through our body, it actually sends messages back and forth to our subconscious and to our conscious. And our subconscious is working the whole time. It's just that when we're awake, our conscious is the stronger, solider kind of point. Anyway, I talk about all of those things in a more detailed, about half an hour per one. If you want to look at that, go back and follow those if you haven't already. Tanya and I will no doubt be hashing this out and getting this relating to actually how this relates to us as a person. But for now, I hope that helps summarize some of the information, and apologies for my diagrams. Be kind. Thank you for listening. And if you'd like to like and subscribe, you're very welcome to. I am doing, my next series is to do dreams, and I'm doing a free tutorial on dreams. Also, if you go to our website, which we're just building at the moment, Tanya's going to be doing some really great mentoring courses. So yeah, enjoy that. I've got some energy work, free energy tutorials already done too, so go back and have a look at those. If you're addressing traumas or things like that, you can jump and have a look. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk later.